I didn't think anything was wrong with my car at first. And if I'm being honest, I almost wish I had ignored the first few things, because now I can't look at it the same way again. It started small, like really small things, the kind you would normally blame on electronics or just an old vehicle acting up. Sometimes when I unlocked it, the headlights would flicker a little longer than usual, or the dashboard lights would take a second too long to turn on. I remember thinking it was just a battery issue, or maybe the wiring. Nothing serious, nothing worth worrying about, but then it started happening more often. I would be driving at night, and the interior lights would dim for no reason, then suddenly get brighter again, like someone was playing with a switch. I checked everything I could think of: the battery, the alternator, even took it to a mechanic, but they said everything looked fine, and that was the part that bothered me the most, because if something is broken you can fix it, but if nothing is wrong, then what exactly is causing it? A few days later, I noticed something else. The car would make a soft clicking sound after I parked it. Not unusual on its own, but it sounded too regular, almost like a pattern. I tried to ignore it again, telling myself it was just cooling metal or something normal. But then, one evening, I locked the car and started walking away, and I heard the doors unlock behind me. I turned around immediately, thinking I must have pressed something by accident, but my keys were in my pocket. I stood there for a moment just staring at it. Then I locked it again, watched the mirrors fold in, and started walking again, and once more I heard the click, the doors unlocking. I felt a bit uneasy, but still tried to be rational. Maybe the key fob was malfunctioning, maybe something electrical was interfering with the signal. Things kept getting stranger over the next week. Sometimes when I got into the car, the radio would already be on, even though I always turned it off before leaving, and it was never on a station I listened to, just static or low muffled voices, like something barely coming through. I would turn it off immediately, but every now and then it would turn back on by itself, just for a second, then go silent again. I started checking my surroundings more often, making sure no one was messing with my car, but there was never anyone around and nothing looked touched. Then one afternoon something happened that I couldn't explain. I had parked the car outside my apartment, like I always did. I remember locking it and walking upstairs, and I didn't leave again for a couple of hours. When I finally went down to grab something from inside the car, it wasn't there. At first I thought maybe I forgot where I parked it, which sounds stupid, but it happens sometimes, especially when you are distracted. But I walked around the entire parking area, and it was gone, completely gone. My heart started beating faster because I was sure I'd left it there. I even checked my pockets again, like that would somehow explain it, and just as I was about to call someone, I noticed it parked across the street in a spot I never use. I stood there staring at it, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. I walked over slowly, half expecting to find someone inside, but it was empty. The doors were locked, just like I had left them. I unlocked it, got in, and everything looked normal. No signs of forced entry, no damage, nothing missing. But I knew I hadn't parked it thereafter, but I started paying closer attention. I would take pictures of where I parked it, just to be sure, and at first everything stayed the same, but then it happened again. I went to a small store a few blocks away on foot. I didn't take the car with me, and when I came out it was parked right in front of the store. I stopped walking immediately, just staring at it, like my brain refused to process what I was seeing. I looked back down the street toward my apartment, and then back at the car. It didn't make any sense. There was no way someone could have taken it and parked it there without me noticing, and again there was no one inside. I walked around it slowly, checking every angle like I was, expecting to find something hidden, but there was nothing. That was the moment I started to feel real fear, not confusion, not curiosity, just fear, because whatever was happening, it wasn't random anymore. It felt intentional, like the car was where I needed it to be, or where something wanted it to be. And had started avoiding it whenever I could. I would walk instead of drive, even if it took longer, and every time I left it somewhere, I had this strange feeling that it was watching me, which sounds crazy, I know, but I can't explain it any other way. Last night is the one I can't stop thinking about. I went out to meet some friends. Nothing unusual, just a normal evening. I stayed longer than I planned, and by the time I left, it was already dark and the streets were mostly empty. I decided to walk home because I didn't want to deal with the car. I just wanted some air to clear my head at first. Everything felt normal, just the sound of my footsteps and the distant noise of traffic. But after a few minutes, I heard something behind me, a slow, steady sound, like a car moving at a low speed. I didn't think much of it at first, but it stayed at the same distance no matter how fast. I walked. I glanced back briefly and saw headlights far behind me. Not unusual, but something about it felt off, the way it moved, too smooth, too quiet. I kept walking, trying to ignore it, but the sound didn't go away. It stayed with me, matching my pace. I started walking faster, and so did the car, not aggressively, just enough to keep the same distance between us. My heart started racing, and I could feel that same cold unease building in my chest. I told myself it was probably just someone driving slowly, maybe looking for an address, but then I realized something that made it worse. The street I was on had no houses, just a long stretch of empty road. There was no reason for anyone to be driving that slow there. I turned a corner, hoping it would pass or go another way, but it followed the same turn, still keeping that distance. I could hear the engine now, low, steady, almost quiet enough to disappear into the night. I stopped walking for a second, and the car slowed down even more. Almost stopping to it was the moment I decided to turn around. I don't know why. Maybe I just wanted to prove to myself that it was nothing, that I was overthinking everything. But as I turned and started walking back toward it, the car came to a complete stop, the headlights still on, pointing straight at me. I walked slowly, my heart pounding louder with every step, and as I got closer, I started to recognize it. Something about the shape, the way the light reflected off the hood, felt familiar. And then I realized why, because it was my car. He stopped, completely just staring at it. The engine was running, the lights were on, and it was parked right there in the middle of the road. I could see through the windshield. Clearly there was no one inside, no one in the driver's seat, no one in the passenger seat, nothing, just an empty car with the engine running like it had been waiting for me. Don't remember how long I stood there, but I know I didn't get any closer. Eventually the engine turned off on its own, and the lights went out, leaving me standing in complete silence. And I still don't know how it got there, or why it followed me, or what would have happened if I hadn't turned around, but I do know one thing: I haven't driven that car since, and sometimes, late at night, I still hear the faint sound of an engine outside, moving slowly down the street, like it's looking for me again. Before you leave, I just want to say this story actually came from someone I used to know. We talked a little back then, but I haven't been able to reach him for months. He's not active on social media anymore, and the last time I visited his place, he had already moved out. All the stories on this channel come from real people sharing what happened to them. I don't make these things up, I just tell them as they told me. So if you want to hear more real stories like this, stay tuned because there are plenty more coming, and some are even harder to explain than this one.